welcome to Sport Quotes and Facts Untold. This week we're joined by John Halls, the former Arsenal defender, former footballer, now turned model. How's it going, John?
Sounds weird, that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
No, I'm all good, mate. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. So you've been in New York. That is where your work now takes you, to New York City. And you've been working with Macy's. Like, what is that like? It just sounds incredible.
It's nuts. You know what? Macy's is such a good client as well, anyway, because they put the old 9 yards out. Do you know what I mean? So working with them guys, we can go anywhere. We can be in Miami or the Caribbean, or this time happened to be in New York, and it's all done lovely and properly, and everyone's great, and the spread put on's great. And but as a model, you can't eat it all, so I've got to be trying to be picky, which is a bit gutting.
Yeah, and I guess New York City in the summer is a bit different to the Britannia Stadium in the pouring rain, isn't it?
Mate, we always knock the Britannia Stadium and Stoke, but what that 2 or 3 years I had there was blinding, mate. I mean, that season, I loved every second of that place. I did.
So to get onto your football career, we'll go back to the very start. You grew up in North London. Were you an Arsenal fan growing up?
Yeah, I grew up on literally around Angel, so 10 minutes from the ground, really, around Highbury and that. And all me and mates were Arsenal mad. We was mad from about 5 or 6 years old. I think we loved the Arsenal. So, yeah, it was kind of a boyhood dream once I got signed there about 10 or 11. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So do you remember the 89 title win? Was that the sort of era that you grew up watching?
That kind of like, so I had a couple of boys that are older than me in my sort of group, only about 2 or 3 years. And that was what I think got us into it, because they was, a little bit older and they was into that, and they sort of remembered it more than I did. And then from that is when I sort of started loving the Arsenal. So I kind of feel like I would have maybe watched it with my dad, but I think I missed that sort of that part of it. But a few years later, I was right into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did the move come about as a kid that you were signed by the club you'd supported?
You know what? I started playing football in my local youth club, which no one has no more youth clubs. They were great back in the day. I played football for my local youth club, and the main guy there, Nick Adams, he was great. He was great at trying to get people into clubs and whatever. And he got me a trial at Islington first of all, and I started playing for Islington and London. And then while I was playing for one of them teams, I think Islington, I got a little what's the guy's name? Bill. Oh, God, I love Bill. Bill was at the Arsenal, and he got me a trial when I was 10. So I went along and had a trial, and then heard nothing really from him. Just went back to playing, Islington and the school, whatever. And then about a year later, they rung again. They said, "Come for another trial." So we went along, and then after that, that was it. It was like, "Yeah, cool. Let's get this boy on the books."
Yeah, and obviously in your career, John, you were a right back, and is that the position you always played, or did you?
No, I felt like I was always a midfielder growing up. So I was a midfielder until Wenger, really. Wenger sort of like, because I think I could play a bit, do you know what I mean? And Wenger come in, and he had that style of football where he wanted his centre halves to play football and come out with the ball. So he stuck me centre half for about 2 or 3 seasons in the reserves, and sort of coming through, trying to get through into the first team. And then obviously the progression for that normally is, as a kid, you sort of go right back because it's a little bit safer. So then I went right back a couple of times for the Arsenal, and then Tony Pulis took me on loan, and he played me right back as well. Right. So that was it.
And who were the coaches when you were a young kid at Arsenal? Did you have a different coach every season, or how did it work?
Yeah, I mean, it changed every sort of 1 or 2 seasons, but I remember one of my first great guys was Andy McDowell, I think his name was. He was unbelievable at teaching the kids. And then once we got into the YTS at the time, we had Neil Banfield, who was unbelievable. We had Don Howell. He took us for 2 years, and that was like, at the time I didn't really realise who Don Howell was. You know what I mean? I knew he was, but I didn't really know, the stature of the guy. But with that guy for 2 years was unbelievable. Then we had Georgie Armstrong. He was fantastic. Don Givens, he was unbelievable. So the coaches down there were fantastic. And then obviously Pat Rice took me under his wing a little bit once he got me in with the first team boys, and Arsene Wenger. So there's some good names there.
Yeah, and it's been well documented, John, how Arsene Wenger sort of revolutionised English football in terms of, that diet and the outlook. Did that trickle down to the academy at that stage? Did you feel like the club changed when he came in?
Yeah, absolutely. Once he came in, the whole club, once he was in and around it, everyone was on the same wavelength. I remember the first time he sort of came in, and we used to obviously, on double session days, we'd obviously stop at 12 o'clock, have a quick munch and get back out and then try and, be home for 2-3 o'clock. And then all of a sudden he came in and it was like, hang on a minute, once you eat, you wait for an hour or two before you go back out and run, which was like, hang on a minute, I want to get home. But he revolutionised it, and all for the better.
Yeah. So you've come through the ranks with Arsenal. Can you remember the moment when you were first training with the first team and how that came about?
I do remember being in like YT and getting called over. They was playing a practice game and we got called over, and he put me centre half, and I remember Dixon was right back, and I think Keown was on the left of me, and that was like, oh wow, it's like it's really happening. And then obviously the rest of the boys were in the midfield, and we had a bit of a team first team v first team kind of thing, and I was in there playing centre half. So I do remember that. I think I was about 16. So that was a little bit, maybe even a bit younger, maybe 15, 16, I think I was. But that was, I'll never forget that. And then after that, going in and out of the first team was kind of, I wouldn't say like I was expecting it, but when you're a good player, you want to beat players and you want to be around them and you think you're better than them, and I deserve my chance. So after that, but I remember that one really well.
Yeah, because obviously Arsenal had great success. They won league titles, cups. When you came through and you were in that team, did you feel like you belonged, or was it quite a daunting experience? How did you deal with that?
I absolutely felt I belonged. I think that was one of my little problems really as well, because I did have a few little bits whilst I was in and out of the first team and sort of getting on the bench and getting on games in the Carling Cup. Then I kind of had a couple of injuries, and then when I went back, I felt like some players had gone in front of me, and that kind of upset me a little bit. And then I went out on loan, and I played on loan. And then once I come back, I remember sitting down with Wenger because Stoke put the bid in. But I still had like a year or two left on my contract at Arsenal, and Stoke put the bid in. And I sat down with Wenger, and I was like, I asked him, what should I do? And he was kind of like, and I was used to playing football then. I was playing football in front of the, whatever it was, 10, 15,000 at Stoke for, I think, three months. The crowd singing your name. It was great. I didn't want to go back to reserve team football. So I asked Wenger, how long would it take me to get in the first team here, or should I go to Stoke? And he kind of gave me that answer where it was like, well, you're going to have to be really patient. It's going to take a while. And I was like, no, I want to play. So I went to Stoke. But I don't know, in hindsight, maybe I should have stayed at the Arsenal and stuck it out, and who knows. But, what I had at Stoke was amazing. So it was what it was.
Yeah, and you mentioned your loan spell. You had a loan spell at Stoke, but before that, you actually spent the season in Belgium.
Yeah.
And you went out with Graham Stack, the goalkeeper, Liam Chilvers, and Steve Sidwell. Yeah, and I've actually read, John, that Steve Sidwell was sort of sent home, that Beveren weren't keen. Do you remember that at all, or do you remember what happened before we went over?
All four of us went out there. We was really young, really going out there. I think 17 and 18, we went out there, and it was a big sort of culture shock a little bit, and the gaffer at the time, I can't remember his name at Beveren, but we obviously done a pre-season training, maybe 6 weeks there, and then he kind of selected his squad and who he wanted and whatever, and whether City was involved or not, I can't really remember, but I know he went back. I'm sure he'd be gutted now, the gaffer, that he sent City back. But it was an experience. I was out there. I got into a bit of trouble out there and whatnot, and maybe being out there a bit too young and a bit too, I don't know, got into a little bit of trouble. And some injuries as well. I had some injuries out there, so I don't know. That probably goes against you when Wenger gets his feedback from that as well. But good stories we've got.
Well, as you said, you said that you had that chat with Wenger, and one of the players you played at Beveren was actually another right back, Emmanuel Abue.
Yeah, correct.
So there was a link, wasn't there, between Arsenal and Beveren? There was So what was it like playing with Emmanuel Abue, and did you think at the time that he would be good enough to play in the Premier League for Arsenal?
I mean, at the time, I think we had a lot of Ivorian boys at Beveren. Yaya Toure was one of them as well, and me, Stacks and Childs got on so well with these boys. They were fantastic. They wanted to learn. They wanted to run. They wanted to play well and all the rest of it. And Ibue was definitely one of them. And we got on great. And I loved him. I thought he was a great player. But obviously, I still believe, I was as good or better. So it was one of the things. And then you go back to the Arsenal and then he comes and they go in front of you and you get a little bit disappointed and you get a bit angry and you kind of know your own ability and you think, well, but it is what it is, right? I can't still stay moaning about it. It's, the politics of football.
Yeah, and Yaya Toure obviously went on to be one of the best central midfielders of the 21st century. Yeah, what was it like to play with him at such a young age?
It was weird because obviously I think when we go over there as Arsenal players, we think we're the bee's knees. We think we're the bollocks. We're going over there and we're better than everyone. And all of a sudden, this dude, we're thinking, I'll take the ball off him. And he can't get round, he can't get near him, can't get him. And I think this boy's good, but he was like, sometimes we had to give him a G up because sometimes it was too easy for him. He would just stroll through games, and me and Stacks and Childs used to give him a kick up the arse sometimes. But when he was on it, he was untouchable. He really was. But then sometimes he was like, he'd go through the motions a little bit and think he was too good, which he probably was. But when you got that ball on it, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, and he had a 2-week trial at Arsenal. What are your memories of that? Can you remember when he came over to North London?
I don't remember, to be honest with you. I can't remember that. I don't know if I was still at the club when he was there. When I was there at the time, I'm not too sure. But yeah, that was always a rumour. He had the trial, and then he was not picked up.
Yeah, because I did read, John, that Yaya Toure, after the trial, Arsenal was trying to get him a European passport.
Yeah.
But I think similar to you were so keen to play football, and I think Yaya was as well, because in the end he actually went to play in Ukraine.
Yeah, that's right.
It shows, doesn't it, that, players, you do have to make that move sometimes to progress your career.
You know what it is? I think it's reserve team football. When you've played enough of reserve team football and you think you're ready, you know you're ready, and then you do actually go and play somewhere with a crowd and whatnot, and then to go back to reserve team football, it always feels like, for instance, when you got put in the reserve team, it felt like a punishment when you was in the first team. It really did. So from going from that back into that, it just really feels disheartening, and it's hard to stay around it for too long. And I didn't want to do that. I was ready to play football, so I made the decision to go.
Yeah, and obviously your position, John, you were a defender, meaning that in training you were up against Thierry Henry. Bergkamp. What is it like as a not just an Arsenal fan, but as a football fan and as a professional footballer? What was it like to put yourself against those players?
I mean, same again at the time. I mean, when you first get involved with them, you're like, oh my God, that's whatever. But I never took it. I never gave them a leeway. I thought I was as good or better. I was going to get stuck in and all the rest of it. And then it wasn't until I come away from football and then look back and thought, oh wow, I was playing with the best players, some of the best players to ever live. So I think it's once you come out and you think about it, at the time you're in there and you're involved and you think you're as good or you deserve to, be their place or take their place. And then, I just think sometimes a lot of players did come into the Arsenal at that time what I didn't think were nowhere near as good as me. And then all of a sudden they get a little bit picked here and there and you think, hang on a minute, why is he getting on the bench? Why is he going Champions League on the bench and not me? That was always a frustrating thing, I think, whilst when I got a little bit old towards the end of my career at the Arsenal.
Yeah, because I think in the early 2000s as well, John, Arsenal were like famed for having a really good academy. I mean, I'm an Evertonian, and I remember the Arsenal youth team knocked us out of the League Cup one year. Yeah. That was how Wenger sort of, put the young guys in, wasn't it, in the League Cup? Yeah. You had some incredible players, you had the likes of Ali Adair, Gaio Clichy, and there was a steady flow, wasn't there? So did it feel like every few months there would be a new young player to sort of have to battle against?
Yeah, there always seemed to be, players coming in and sort of, not just getting your place straight away, but, you felt like that. And obviously they was deserving to come to Arsenal for some reason or another. But yeah, it did get a bit disheartening. And then sometimes you go, right, cool, I'm training reserves today because, they've all gone to the Champions League and you're stuck about with, reserves and some kids and whatever. And it really got a little bit sort of disheartening and depressing. But I mean, our youth team, the ones that we won the FA Youth Cup twice in the bands, after Wenger's sort of era, his great era, we had a spell of maybe 10, 15 years. Them boys would have walked into that team. I'm telling you, walked into it. But we was just really unlucky that our bunch of boys were at a time where Arsenal were the best team nearly in Europe. Yeah. So it was just one of them things.
Yeah. So John, when Thierry Henry, when you were in training with him, was he even better than on match day? What was he like?
You know what? Everyone's always asked me, and I always say Dennis Bergkamp. For me in training, Dennis was always. I used to just look at him in awe and see the things he'd have eyes in the back of his head. What he'd done was amazing. I mean, obviously Thierry. Once you got him on a big pitch and he opened up, unbelievable. But when we had them short things and the short-sided games, and Dennis was, he was on a different planet.
Yeah, and I know another player that gave you a few problems in terms of tackling him was Kanu.
Yeah, mate, Kanu, you couldn't get the ball off that geezer. He can nutmeg you twice in 2 touches, that fella, mate, and you'd be like, oh, he deserved to do that.
And you had obviously like Robert Perez as well, Freddie Ljungberg, Ray Parler, just a lot of players that were just really technically very good.
What a squad, eh? What an absolute squad. Unbelievable. And to be around them and learn off of them was unbelievable.
Yeah. And what was the camaraderie like in the Arsenal dressing room, John?
It was fantastic. I mean, even in the reserves and that, we was all, it was brilliant. Even the dressing room, the changing room, the physio room, it was brilliant. Every day I loved going in there. Yeah. It was some characters.
Yeah, I was going to say, who were the biggest characters? Like, who were the noisy? I mean,
when I was still, there was obviously Ray Parler still, and Franny Jeffers. So Franny. So he was another noisy one. Stacky, obviously, he was noisy, still is. But yeah, there was a good few characters.
Yeah. And what was it like? Did you have many one-to-ones with Arsene Wenger? And what was he like in terms of helping you in your career?
I think Arsene had that sort of aura about him. He didn't say too much to me, but when he did, it made you feel, it was always positive and it made you feel unbelievable. In terms of having one-on-ones in his room, it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 times maybe, but everything he always said always made me feel, great and unbelievable. And he had that aura. He'd just walk around the pitch and everyone would be like, "Oh, right, cool, Wenger's here. Quick, make sure you're doing your bits and bobs." Yeah. So he was great like that.
Yeah. And what would when you were training with the first team, John, just to get a bit of an insight into what one of the best teams in Europe were doing at that time, what would the usual day be like in training in terms of Henry, Bergkamp, the defence? How would it work?
I mean, we was always with the ball. We did split up sometimes and we do defensive draws and we do attacking draws, but everything was always with the ball. Everything we ever done was ball work. And then there was a lot of team, we'd have all the team in, we'd have mannequins and we'd be doing, possession and passing and shape around that. So that was a massive thing for them.
Yeah. And you mentioned Wenger, helping you with your career. Were there any of the first team players who sort of took you under their wing as one of the young lads?
Yeah, I think Martin Keown was a great example. Tony Adams, whilst he was there, was brilliant. Ray Parler's always great. So I'd say not always just English boys, but the English boys did look after us when we were sort of in and around the first team. I remember Martin taking the alcohol out of my hand once and giving me a water, and I thought, yeah, cheers, Martin.
Yeah, that is good advice. And John, obviously, you were playing for one of the best teams in Europe as a youngster, and you actually played for England under 20s. What are your memories of representing your country?
Oh, every time I went away with England, it was fantastic. I mean, that was another thing. Like when I played under 20s, I think I played 15, 16, 17, 18, 20s, and then everyone who was kind of there did love me, and they promised me I'd be in the 21s, and then till I went to Belgium. So whether you're out of sight, out of mind, I don't know. But once I went to Belgium, I was forgotten about. So I don't know what happened there. But other than that, my times at the 20s was great. We unfortunately had a really bad Toulon tournament. We didn't do too well there. But I remember all the other times I think we won most of our games and had a great squad and great times.
Yeah, because I was just looking. There was obviously Jay Bothroyd, who would have been at Arsenal. Peter Crouch, Jolene Lescott. It seems like there was another team full of characters, really.
We had a great team. I remember Defoe being in it as well, Pennant. And we had a really, really good team. David Noble, which at the Arsenal was an unbelievable player. We had a great team, which was disappointing because we went to Toulon. We thought we was going to win it. We thought, hang on, we're going to win this. And then it just went a little bit wrong.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned like David Noble, a great player. He ended up playing in the Football League. I think he was at Exeter. And you mentioned about your loan spell in Belgium as well. Do you think when you're that age, it doesn't matter as much about ability? It's more about like just right place, right time sometimes?
You know what? I mean, it always have to be a little bit right place, right time. But I think with Arsenal at the time, I think at that time it was hard to leave Arsenal because you got taught a way to play football that no one else in the country was playing. So you come away from that, and all of a sudden they're telling you, "Hang on a minute, you got to put it down the line." You put down the line at Arsenal, you got whipped off. So all of a sudden you're going to these places and doing what you've been taught for all your life, all your career from young. And these managers now are telling you to adapt and do it differently, and you're like, no. I know how to play football. I've been taught by the best guy in Europe at the moment or in the world. So I think we struggled leaving Arsenal because it really was total different football compared to literally 99% of every team in England.
And I suppose in terms of football stereotypes as well, John, you went to Tony Pulis, who, in terms of the stereotype.
That was the thing, but I got, like, bless Tony, I went there and done my stuff, and I think he must have seen something in me where he let me do it. Because we obviously know Pulis and Stoke, how we played. We'd kick it in corners sometimes, we'd be defensive, we'd be strong. But for some reason, I don't know, my debut, I didn't even train. I went and played my debut against Forest for him. I just went up there and he stuck me in. And I think I played centre-half we played 3 centre-half that day. And I'd just done what I was good at. I brought the ball out. I never gave the ball away. So I think he then thought, hang on a minute, I could do this with the guy at right back. And he stuck me at right back and let me bring the ball out and let me do what I wanted. And it worked for us. We had a great season. I think we had one of the best finishes we had that season. And he let me do what I kind of wanted to do, or until I gave it away, then he'd give me some stick.
So the way football has transformed, John, do you think 2023 football would have been better for you as a player than 2003?
I mean, let's look at what Stonesy's doing now, or Trent. Yeah. Oh God, what I'd give to have been in these sort of teams, or this sort of like the way they play now. God, yeah. So it's it was just timing is unfortunate. But I love watching what most teams are doing now. Everyone's trying to play some sort of football, most teams now. So it's great to watch.
Yeah. So obviously your Arsenal career was then coming to an end and you were on loan at Stoke. But I remember you did actually have a training session with a young kid called Cesc Fabregas.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
What are your memories of him coming through just before you left?
Yeah, I remember same thing again. I thought it was, young lads here, and I thought, here we go. Someone else is taking in front of me now. We went out for a little warm up and a kick it back before anyone else come out, and we just pinged the ball to each other. I went and collected a few of his one. I thought, he's shit. Another one. Here we go. But then, he turned out to be Cesc. So can't knock him, can we?
Yeah. And Wenger, obviously he had the likes of Henry, Bergkamp winning him titles, but he had a really good eye for young talent as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Some of the boys he brought through and who he kept through from our sort of era was, great players. He did have a great eye for that. And then, I do think most of the time, if you're kind of good enough, you'll get a chance. It's just whether you take that chance or not.
Yeah. So then, obviously, John, you've grown up near the Arsenal and you've played for them. So that's all you've known in terms of your career. What was it like moving up north to Stoke and playing a different way? A different league, different players who obviously weren't as good, quality-wise. Did that take quite a bit of an adjustment?
I think the adjustment a little bit is, but also the best thing is playing in front of a crowd and having that sort of pressure as well. That was a new thing and something to get used to, and something that I loved as well. And that buzz you get from it was fantastic. Being away from home as well was, because you're off the leash a little bit as well. So you kind of got, as much as my mum and dad was looking after me when I was at home and making sure I was doing the right things. When you get, up north, I think I was up there at 21, and I was off the leash a little bit and probably went out a little bit partying too much, but I was still playing great football. So I thought, hang on, this is great. I can do this, but you can't. It's when the injuries come and you're still doing that stuff. That's when you get punished. And you don't realise it really as a kid. I was just playing great football and having a laugh and still going out as well with sort of most nights in Stoke, most weekends. So At the time, I thought it was clever and great, but in the long run, my injuries did start coming once I joined Reading, and then it kind of it went downhill from there.
Yeah, and at Stoke, John, they had strikers like Adi Akinbaye, Gifton, Noel Williams, very different strikers physically as well compared to Dennis Bergkamp and Henry. How was that in terms of dealing with that physicality of the league and in training?
You know what? I think coming from Arsenal, I think even though I was a skinny boy, we was a physical team at the Arsenal. You couldn't get in that first team without being really physical. So I think the physical side was fine. I just think learning to play with different players and whatever. I knew with Gifton, I could put it up to him anywhere, around his neck, around his leg, and he's bringing that down because he was a big boy. He could pin anyone. So I knew I could just pop it into him or round corners, and he's going to pin that defender. Whereas Addy, I knew I could put it in some sort of nice pass in the channel, and with his pace, he was making it. So them two worked really well together, and also for me as well. So I knew what I could do with them two. So that was kind of fantastic.
Yeah. So in those 3 years, John, who were you sort of closest to in the squad?
At Stoke.
Yeah, at Stoke.
So me and Gifton bought houses together next door to each other. So me and Gifton were best friends. Michael Doob come along, and it was me, Doobs, and Gifton. We were best mates for a couple of years. Who else was there? I mean, everyone was great. I got on really well with everyone, but them two was probably my besties.
Yeah. And with football and training, it's not like a 9 to 5. There are times when you can finish early. When you are living away from home and you've got your houses together, do you find yourself socialising with your teammates much more?
Yeah, we were socialising quite a lot. I had my cousin live with me as well from London, who was a bit of a boy, and he got invited. The boys loved him as well, so it was kind of the four of us, and then we'd go and play pool, and we played a lot of pool. I'd tuck them two boys in, I tell you as well. But we used to play pool a lot, and then sometimes it was always a drink here and there. So it is hard, mate, especially when you're away from home. It's hard to go home and behave yourself.
Yeah. And in 60 games, John, for Stoke, you actually got 3 red cards. Was that something in your game? Were you quite a fiery character on the pitch?
I was fiery, I was aggressive, but I think that's what makes you a good player sometimes. Yeah, I mean, what I think I was growing up as a kid in the youth team, I think 3's, quite really good, really, in 60. I thought it would have been a lot more than that.
And what was it like being in that dressing room, especially what was Tony Pulis like with the team sort of after a win, and was he very different after a defeat?
Yeah, Pulis was amazing though, because he told you exactly what he thought of you and exactly what he thought of the team and exactly how we'd done. So you knew where you stood with Tony. Even if you weren't playing, you knew what you needed to do to play or why you weren't playing. He never held any punches. If we won, fantastic. We'd have a great week. If we lost, we'd have a bad week afterwards. So you knew exactly where you stood with Tony, and that's why I loved him. I used to talk with him all the time. And he'd tell me exactly what he wanted from me, or exactly what to do and what not to do, and what pissed him off and what didn't.
And when Stoke had the Premier League success a few years later in Pulis' second spell, did you expect them to, get to the Premier League one day under Pulis, or did it take you by surprise?
You know what? With Pulis, yeah, I thought Tony was an unbelievable manager. I just thought if he got the right squad together, right players together, he could always do something like that. Definitely. It was just unfortunate that he did get sacked at the time, because I probably would have stayed there with him. If Tony was there, I would have stayed there with him. So it was just unfortunate. I think my timing's not been great in my career.
And have you got any other dressing room memories, John, just in terms of like the banter that was in the dressing room and stuff?
Stoke, oh mate, we had some tear-ups in Stoke. Most games we had tear-ups. When you think we had Akinbaye, Carlos Saba, Gifton Noel Williams, Jerry Taggart, we had tear-ups. I think most tunnels, it was chaos. And I'd be behind all them 4 big boys trying to give it. You know what I mean? We played QPR and at Stoke at our gaff, and I think Taggart got sent off after about 5-10 minutes. So we was down to 10 men, and we lost the game, I think 1 or 2-0. And at full time, he was still in the tunnel in his kit, and the geezer who got him sent off come around the corner, wallop, and it all went off. We had a brawl in that tunnel for a good 15 minutes before it got sorted out. That one sticks in the memory.
Yeah, no, it does. It just sounds like. And do you think that we talked about ability and stuff, but do you think having a together dressing room really does help get results? Do you think it's
absolutely
a key ingredient?
When everyone's pulling for each other and everyone demands things off of each other. Taggart brought a lot of that with him as well, because he demanded a lot of people. I think sometimes I used to go, think I can do what I wanted because I thought I was the best player at Stoke, whatever. And all of a sudden, Tags comes and hang on a minute, don't do it, but we demand off you not to take the piss or whatever. So I love that in Taggart, in Jerry.
Yeah. And what was pre-season like under Tony
Fucking
Pulis?
hard. Yeah. Fucking hard, mate. Jesus, Pulis that had us doing hills all the time, man. Yeah. I remember this hill once. We used to do this hill, and it was that hard to come back down. We used to roll back down it. He didn't care how you got back down it, but you was going back up it, and we used to roll down the hill because we was shot.
So, did you do any pre-season trips abroad or anything like that?
With Stoke, I think we did. Because I think we went Holland once. I vaguely remember going to Holland because I think me and Gifton, we used to be roommates, and I remember being in Holland with him. So we must have gone there somewhere. Yeah.
And so you mentioned that Pulis, you probably would have stayed at Stoke. So was it a case of when he went, you were already on the lookout? What was the reason for leaving Stoke?
What it was, once Pulis went, they got a new guy in, a Dutch geezer, but I loved him as well. Great guy, great manager. But my contract was coming to I think maybe a year left or whatever, coming to an end, and they wanted me to renew it, which I was kind of happy to do. But I wanted to be the best. It weren't greedy, but I wanted to be the best paid player at the club, which they kind of agreed to, except for loan players. And I knew a loan player was on a lot more. And I was like, hang on a minute, well, why is a loan player getting more than some sort of homegrown player, right? And then so sort of wanted that, but then they wanted to put like a £1 million clause on my head, or maybe more, I think. And I refused to sign that. So once I refused to sign, he said, if you're not signing, you're not playing. So then I got a little bit aggy with that. It come a bit of a battle, which it shouldn't have really. It come a bit of a battle, and then whilst I said, right, cool, I'm not signing, and they stuck me on the bench, that's when a couple of offers come in, and it sort of like turned me head a little bit. And I thought at one stage I was going to West Ham, so West Ham told me to wait my contract out and then join them in sort of January in the end of my season, then, which would have been would have been like June, July the next year. So they said wait it out. So I did that. I sort of waited, and then it ended up being January, and that's when Reading come in, Southampton come in, and a couple of other teams. And we put the ultimatum to West Ham, and they said, "Oh, hang on a minute," because I had a couple of rows in training. I don't know if that come out or whatever, but I got in trouble a few bits and bobs. And I ended up going to Reading. Once I knew my boy Stacky was there, and Siddy and James Harper, I thought that's it. They was going up, so I went and joined Reading, which, in hindsight, I'm not sure it was the greatest decision, because I don't know who signed me really there. I went there more because my pals were there than any other reason.
Yeah. Because when you mentioned about Reading, I was thinking that they were flying high at the time as well in the Championship, weren't they? So was that part of you thinking as well that could be another route to the Premier League, or not really?
Same thing again. Stupidly, you think, hang on a minute, I'm such a good player, I'm going to walk into that team easy. They're a Championship team, I'm going to walk into this team. And then in reality, you know what I mean? They're winning every game. Why are they going to change too much? Their captain was right back, and then walking into there again, not doing my research, he's still couple, amazing, great, what they've done, fantastic. But as a fullback, he didn't want you playing really. So I went there and still wanted to play, and it didn't work.
Yeah, because I know you say it didn't work, John, but you also had your injury problems at Reading as well, and it was your Achilles.
Yeah, the Achilles started. That's when the Achilles started really out there, and I had Achilles, and I think I'd done that went on for a good 6-7 months. So between that and not really getting on football-wise with Koppel, it was a bit of a disaster.
Right, and that was another good dressing room, it seems, with your Arsenal guys, and yeah,
brilliant. we had a great dressing room there, really did. And obviously, when you're winning games and everything's great, it's even better. We had some great trips away because we won the league and stayed up the following season, or not even just stayed up, but came 10th or whatever. I think it was 10th. So yeah, we had some great times. We really did.
So where did you go in that summer to celebrate? Was it like a reward from the club?
Yeah, I think we went Marbella all the time. We used to love Marbella and us lot, so we went there all the time. We went there a few times. I'm trying to figure out if we went Vegas or if that was with the other clubs that I went with. I think we might have went Vegas as well, when we won the league. I think so. Marbs and Vegas we did, yeah, so chaos.
Yeah, and what was that like? Because I remember that season when Reading went up, it was every week they were just win, win, win. And, they had players that have done really well in the Premier League. You had Stephen Hunt, Shane Long, Dave Kitson. What were they like as well? Do you think they were ready for the Premier League at that time?
Yeah, you know what? I think because they had that championship season where it was unbelievable, I just think that sometimes, it happens quite a lot, you just take it into the next season. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. You just, you stick to your things and everyone's playing great and they trust each other. And I think that it goes into the next season. If you start your first maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games in the Prem well, then that season can be anything for you.
And you say that the Reading move didn't really go to plan, John. When you are injured, as a professional used to playing every week and training, back then, what would your week be like? Would you still get to see the boys, or would it be quite a lonely experience?
I mean, you're still in the change room, you're still in amongst it, but watching them all go out to training and you're stuck in the physio room or you go to the gym or whatever, it is really depressing. I mean, and then I always said, like, managers or coaches kind of don't talk, and this is at any club, it used to be, they didn't really, once you was injured, you were sort of like, all right, cool, talk to us when you're fit again, kind of thing. So it's always kind of depressing and a bit heartbreaking, really, to watch them all going away to, Prem games and playing at big stadiums like Old Trafford and whatnot. So that was really disheartening.
Yeah, you did play 2 League Cup games in that year, but then the year after you did actually make your Premier League bow against away at Bolton. What was it like after such a difficult season to finally get on the pitch in a Premier League match?
No, I mean, it was great. It really was great, but it was, it was a bit. I think that game we lost, and it was a bit too late towards the end of the game, and it was nice to get on, but still, we lost the game. It was a bit of a horrible dressing room afterwards, and I don't really remember it too much, that one, to be honest with you. I mean, it should have been getting on for the Premiership debut, but I don't really remember it too much. I remember it being a bit of a shit coach ride home, and that was it.
And then obviously, John, you had 3 loan spells as well that season. With Preston, Crystal Palace, Sheffield United, all big clubs, well supported.
Yeah.
Was that difficult though, to be different parts of the country for short spells?
Yeah, it is a little bit, and then going into a new dressing room is kind of hard. You got to meet all the boys again. Sheffield United was great, and Crystal Palace was great. Both of the loans went really great for us. But the only thing what happened was, I think on both of the occasions we missed out on the playoffs. And that was it. Once that happened, we was back to Reading. That was it. They was kind of like, all right, cool, season's over. Let's talk again next season. So whether we would have made the playoffs and something would have happened, you never know.
Yeah, and then you left Reading, John, and I read that you had a trial with Blackpool and a trial with Sheffield Wednesday. What is that, a different sort of pressure to match day, because you're trying to impress just with not much time, really? You've got a game and maybe a few training sessions. What's that like in terms of the psychology of it as well?
I was fine at Blackpool. Blackpool went. I mean, I went there and I felt I was, as good or better than anyone there, and I'd done really well. But I think money wise, it didn't work out with Blackpool. Their budget weren't great, and for me to move all up to Blackpool, I had to be, taking my family up there had to be a big reason. And then Sheffield Wednesday, I think that was maybe a day or two I was up there for, really, and that didn't, trying to show someone something in 1 or 2 days was no good. And I think it was quite late in the season, in the pre-season, that I think he already had his team really sorted out with what he wanted. So then I think I ended up wanted to train at Brentford because they was around the corner from my house. And then once I was there and training, I kind of got on well with the gaffer and everyone, and that was it. And I signed for them.
Yeah. So what was that like at Brentford? Because back then, obviously they've established themselves in the Premier League and are being lauded for being such a brilliant, well-run club. And back then, I think they were 4th division.
Yeah, we was in the bottom league. We was 4th division then, and then but again, we same thing. Something clicked, and all the boys got on well. The gaffer was great. The number 2 Thierry was great, and something just clicked. And then we started winning games, and slowly got up that league, and that everyone demanded something off each other again, and that we had that confidence was built, and we went on and won the league. So that was a fantastic place as well. And we went Vegas.
Vegas. Have you got any memories of that?
It was blinding, mate.
And what was, obviously Brentford moved stadium recently, but Griffin Park was quite iconic. What was it like?
That was great. When that place was rocking, it was great because it felt like the fans were right on top of you. So coming there as an away team, it was a bit of a scary place, a bit daunting. Because we had. I think our home record that season was the best, and we won a lot of games there, and that crowd, got us through a lot of it as well.
After Brentford, you went to Aldershot, and you were actually vice captain.
Yeah, Gary Waddle, great manager. Wanted to play football, so that was kind of one of the reasons. Same again. I went in just to keep training with him, and then I realised what he wanted to do, what he was trying to do, and so I went there with him. And you know what? We was having a great season because we was playing football, and it looked like we was doing well. And then I think he got poached by Wycombe at the time, so off he went to Wycombe, and then our season kind of petered out a little bit. But for playing football, Gary, what a coach, brilliant.
And then you yourself joined Wycombe. Was that with Gary?
Yeah, that's when Gary come. That's when the injuries come even worse though. But Gary said, "Come to Wycombe." So off I went there, and as soon as I joined, my Achilles went, and so that was it. I spent the whole season really trying to play, trying to add 2 operations, and it never got fixed. And then that's when the surgeon said, "Listen, you got to call it a day, mate. Otherwise, you won't be able to walk on this when you're older." So we made the decision to call it a day.
Yeah, and was that, John, just as you sort of in your early 30s at this stage?
Yeah, I think I was just turning 30. I just turned 30. Yeah. So we had a long look at it and said it was the best thing to do.
Yeah. And how did you feel when you made that decision?
It was heartbreaking, really. I mean, the last 3 or 4 years of my career, Brentford was great, but I felt like my career was getting away from me, or I was losing my career really, and I was falling out of love a little bit with it. But it was heartbreaking to think I was coming away from football, at 30 years old was devastating.
So then, John, obviously you've got a new career now. How did the modelling come about, like so soon after football?
So halfway through my Wycombe career, because I signed a year at Wycombe, but an extension if I played sort of 20 games, because Gary knew I was a bit injury prone. So halfway through that season, my first season, the injury was there and I wasn't playing. And my sister said, "Listen, let's go around London and we go to some of the modelling agencies." So I was like, no. She's like, "Come on, let's do it. So she forced me to go round one day, went all these agencies, and they all said no, except for the last one we went into, which is now my agency Next. And they said, "All right, cool, we like you, but can you be full time?" And I was like, "Well, no, I've got 6 months left on my contract at Wycombe." So that was it. Kind of left and went back to football, and forgot about it really, and tried to get fit again. And then once my retirement happened, I think literally I retired, and then for about 4 or 5 days, crying my eyes out. And then I happened to be in Westfield Shopping Centre, and the agency was there scouting. She was like, "Oh, John," and I was like, "Oh, hey." She's like, "You're going to come in? What's happening?" I said, "Oh, I've retired from football now." She said, "Well, come in. We'll take a few pictures and get you started." And that was it. So I went in, had some pictures done, and that was it.
Yeah. It all happened. It's exactly like I said about football careers as well. It's those sliding door moments, isn't it? Just think if you hadn't made that trip, it might not have happened the way it has.
Yeah, I mean, what has happened to me, I'm so grateful for. This has been fantastic. If it never happened, what I would be doing still now in football, I don't know. It would be training kids or coaching, I don't know. But what actually happened was, I'm so grateful for it, and it's been fantastic. I love every minute of this job now.
And for your sister to have made that suggestion, John, had you done any modelling before then?
Yeah, I done it as a kid. I done it until I was I think I done it as like a kid model from like maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. and I'd done really well. It was fantastic, and I was going to America and back and forth, and I was in Kylie Minogue's video, one of her videos, so it went really well. But then I think I got to about 11, 12, and I said, "Mum, I want to play football," and she was like, "All right, cool, let's knock it on the head." So we knocked it on the head. But she's still got all the cuttings of me as a kid and the clips and whatnot.
So what's it like being in a Kylie Minogue video?
Oh, my dad said I cried the whole time. He said they were shooting in Camden Locks, but they was doing a night shoot. So I think we got there about 8 p.m., 9 p.m. And I think I was only 8 or 9 or 10 years old. And I was there, I was happy. I met Kylie Minogue at the time. I was in love with her. Like, wow, Kylie Minogue. And I went into her change room, she was in her bra, and I was like, oh my God, like Kylie Minogue, what the fuck? And then I think I was in the first scene or whatever, but I was supposed to have a dancing scene, which they was trying to shoot at like 2, 3 a.m. So I think I was crying my eyes out to my dad by about 1 a.m. and he took me home. He said, all right, cool, we'll take your own boy. So he looked after me.
Yeah. And obviously you've played for one of the biggest names in football in Arsenal, but I mean the ones you've modelled for, like Armani, Dolce & Gabbana, H&M, Brunello Cucinelli, Next, and then you've obviously been with Macy's and Bloomingdale's recently. What's it like to work with those big names?
Mate, I've been so like the first sort of 2, 3, 4 years was just like I worked for everyone. I went to New York and some geezer gave me the cover of this magazine, which was a big magazine at the time. And once that came out, I was non-stop working. I was working for all the biggest brands, and I was like, it was a bit of a whirlwind. But fantastic, like amazing. I've still got these clients now. They're great guys. I've built up a great relationship with these people. So I've been seeing them now for the last, 10, 11 years. And we're all like little families everywhere. I've got a little family in Armani, little family in Brunello. And so it's fantastic. I've really enjoyed this work. It's great.
And what's it like seeing yourself on like these big billboards, and what's it like seeing yourself in shops and stuff?
I don't like looking at myself no more, man. I've got problems, and I think you see yourself enough now in these pictures and whatever, or even when you're doing the job, they have this like screen on the side where they take the picture and you see every single picture taken. So after the pictures, I got my eyes shut. This one's over here, and you start to wake yourself a little bit. So I don't like looking at most of the stuff.
Because, I mean, John, I've known you sort of like 10 years now when I first met you. And, I mean, I remember going to watch Everton in Germany. And when I got off the plane in Frankfurt, there's John Halls looking back at me. Like, is it hard to, like, picture that your face is all over the world in different, different publications and stuff?
Yeah, I don't understand it. They must like a bit of rough, some of these clients. But it pays the bill, so I don't mind. I'll get it done.
Yeah. So as you said, you're in New York last week, and what is like a sort of typical week for you in the modelling world?
So it can be anything. It can be like I was saying to you, this last month or two, I've been everywhere. I was Oslo, Istanbul, New York, Milan. Now I'm in Perugia, and I've not been at home. So sometimes it can be like that, and then sometimes I can have 3 weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks off maybe with no real work. And you get a bit, and that's when I have problems a little bit because I'm so used to that football, like regimented sort of routine that when I have these days off, I go a little bit crazy. So I need something, or the gym helps, but to keep you busy and working is great. So I think I need to have something on the sideline, which I'm kind of doing at the moment now, just to keep you sane a little bit.
Yeah. And on the trips, John, are there nice perks in terms of like nice hotels and, is it as glamorous as it sounds?
It's not always as glamorous as it sounds. Sometimes it can be a shit hotel. Sometimes they're beautiful hotels. Sometimes the food's amazing. Sometimes, you've got to go fend for yourself a little bit. But it's a mixture. It's a big mixture. But the majority of the times it's great. It's fantastic. But sometimes it can be a little bit draining. The travelling's a little bit draining. Like at the moment, I really want to be at home, but I'm here working and I'm stuck here till Friday night or Saturday night, so it can be a little bit draining, but you've got to take the rough with the smooth.
Yeah. And have you had the opportunity, John, to meet some of your like fashion icons and the designers that you work for?
Yeah, I mean, meeting Giorgio Armani and Dolce & Gabbana, and just to see how involved they are with everything of and why they do so well. Every single little part they're involved with. So it's fantastic to see these guys and sort of watch how they work.
Yeah. And what was Giorgio Armani like?
Oh, amazing. But like he's a bit older now, and he'll sit down and he has his whole team around him, and he gives a smile here and there and a little pat on the cheek. So he's a lovely geezer.
And what would you say your highlights are, John, from your modelling career?
Yeah, I mean, I put them two right up there. Working for some of these guys, Armani, Dolce & Gabbana, now Bruno Cucinelli, these guys amazing. I think opening the runway show for D&G, I did once. When you open a show, it's one of the big things you do in the runways, and walking for Armani now for maybe 10 years is definitely highlights.
Yeah. And do you ever get spotted, John, in terms of, is there an element of celebrity to it?
I think if you know the fashion world, there's a lot of people out there that do know models. You kind of get a little bit spotted, but general public, no. I don't think we have supermodels anymore. We have celebrity models. We have celebrities. I don't really think. I mean, other than David Gandy, I probably think no one really knows too many models. Like, I mean, if I said to you John Cortegena, would you know him? Like, he's one of the biggest models. Like, he's been in he's done everything, but no one really sort of knows his name. So I think that supermodel era kind of went.
Right, yeah. And what's it like, John, sort of Milan Fashion Week? Is that a time when you're super busy, or can you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's you know what it is? It's a bit chaotic. It's super busy, but also all the boys are in town together, so everyone's having a drink as well. And then you're up early and doing a show. And they want you to do it shows 3 or 4 hours before, so they can all get 20, 30, 40, 50 models ready. And then it's a bit chaotic, so you can be there for 4 or 5 days, and it's a little bit, you're burning the candle at both ends, really.
And how many sort of, if you're in Milan Fashion Week, John, how many costume changes would you expect to have in like a day?
I mean, some of the younger boys that are doing tons of these shows can be doing a lot, but most of the most of the runway walks, you only be doing 2 or 3 changes in that one fashion walk. But then you have to be quick, so you got to be, you have to be rapid.
Yeah. Is it a bit like an F1 pit stop? Is there like a team getting you dressed?
Mate, once you've done your first walk, you got to sprint, get back to your changing spot. There's 2 or 3 changes there that are just putting clothes off you and putting clothes on you, and then you're thrown back out again.
Yeah. And obviously, John, as a footballer, you had your ability and then you would go to training. In terms of the modelling world, have you had to learn a lot? Has it been a real learning curve for you?
I think, yeah, you definitely learn as you go and experiences. But I think, obviously, football kind of like put me in good stead as well. I'm a very confident lad, and I went into any room confident and would speak to anyone. So I think that kind of helped me as well without being shy or scared of anyone. So I think that helped and put me in good stead.
And when footballers retire, John, they talk about missing the dressing room and that camaraderie. With your fellow model professionals, does that sort of replaced it? Do you get to hang out a lot and at the shows and stuff like that?
Yeah, we do. The shows are always a place where we'll meet up. We'll all be in town. I mean, sometimes, any model friends that I've got now, one could be in America, one could be in Sydney, one could be... So getting together can be difficult sometimes, but if we're all in London, we'll have a meet up, once a month, once every 2 months. But definitely in the fashion show weeks is a time where everyone's in town. So it's great to get together and get your little team out and do what you're doing.
And I was just interested to know as well, John, when you were a player, when your teams had the new kit out, were you always the guy modelling on the posters?
I've done it quite a bit, yeah. I've done it at Stoke. That's when I had my long blonde hair at Stoke, so I've done it quite a lot at Stoke.
And just to end, John, so obviously, you've been in the tunnel before a match, you're on the catwalk. What's the most nerve-wracking? And how does the feeling differ?
Football, you can't replace that feeling of football, that nervous energy, that anxiety of football, which is now why, fashion shows give me a little bit of like it, but I'm not nervous at all doing these things, which I think is a good thing. But I do miss that nervousness or that build up to the week for a game of football. I think I'll never ever replace that. That's why I think a lot of footballers, go from drugs, drinks, gambling problems, or whatever. But I'll never ever replace that ever.
But do you think, John, that it helped that you found another career so soon after finishing? Do you think it did help you in terms of getting over that, initial heartbreak of having to retire so young?
Absolutely. I dread to think what I'd be doing now if I just had, 2, 3, 4 years of not really doing anything, or, just, trying to coach or whatever. So this took my mind off of it massively. Even though it was there, it took my mind off of it massively and got me through that sort of difficult period, definitely.
Yeah. And John, obviously we've got Cristiano Ronaldo as a bit of a poster boy. Are there, has there been a fair amount of crossover in terms of footballers and modelling?
No, there's not been enough, actually. I know that when the big boys, they can do anything, the big boys, but in terms of like these, the lesser boys, so to speak, coming over, they haven't really done it. There's not many. I think there's definitely there's something there for that. There was another boy called Jay Conway who come across it. I think he played at Orient. He came across, and there was another boy who was at Brentford with me, actually. I can't think of his name, but he's done really well. But I can't think of too many others, if I'm honest with you. So there's definitely a gap there for something.
Yeah. And just to end, John, obviously you're immersed in the modelling world now. What are your links with football now? Is it just a case of watching when you can?
Yeah, just watch it. I watch football religiously now. Again, I still speak to the ex-Arsenal boys, and sometimes we'll meet up and try to have some sort of game or ex-Arsenal game, which is great. But other than that, I don't have any links really. No.
Right. Oh, that was excellent, John. Really amazing to go over your career and to hear how well you're doing now. It's just unreal.
Mate, thank you so much. But thanks for reminding me on a few things, mate.
Yeah. No, I know when we first talked about this, you said your memory wasn't great. So terrible. I'm glad I was able to reignite that.
You picked a few things out there. You've done well, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, nice one, John. Appreciate it.
Take care, mate. Thank you so much. Mate.